What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder. I'm your host, Warren, and right now it seems like Sony is having a bit of a hard time. Madam Web really did very poorly, so poorly that the main actress herself has even gone on to consistently dog on the film. However, in a really weird turn of events, this might actually go on to be pretty beneficial for Spider-Man 4 that is happening in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We might actually get a really cool Spider-Man 4 movie with some really awesome characters and a really awesome setup in Spider-Man 4 thanks to kind of the failure of Madam Web and Sony kind of changing their plans. A new report today tells us that Sony is kind of agreeing with what Marvel Studios wants to do for Spider-Man 4 with the exception of a few things, but these few things that Sony wants I actually think would be really good and I think a lot of fans would really enjoy as well. And according to some outlets like The Hollywood Reporter, the failure of Madam Web completely changed the plans that Sony had. They wanted to build a franchise off of Madam Web, build a big universe, but apparently after Madam Web failed, that was all put to the side. And then we got news right after that, right around the same time, that Sony all of a sudden really wanted to have a big say in what Marvel Studios was going to do with their Spider-Man in the MCU for Spider-Man 4. Most of you have heard these rumors, and we do have a good update today, but for those who might not have heard what is going on, it's pretty simple. I just explained a part of it, but the other part is that Sony has gone to Marvel Studios and went, hey, Spider-Man 4 with Tom Holland, we want this to be a huge multiversal film just like Spider-Man No Way Home. We want to do it again. We want to do it bigger. You're in the multiverse saga right now. This is what we want. Whereas Marvel Studios said, well, we actually wanted to go the opposite route. We wanted it to be a street level film. Show Spider-Man fighting crime on the street. Show him dealing with Kingpin, who was going to be the mayor of New York City at that time in the MCU, which we will see happen in Daredevil Born Again. And we saw the start of that in the post-credit scene for Echo. So Kingpin was supposed to become the mayor of New York City. He was supposed to outlaw being a vigilante, and he was going to have his own thugs go after the vigilantes who refused to stop. That is the street level type of film that we were going to get from Marvel Studios if Sony had zero say whatsoever. Now, the last that we heard, they were negotiating and they were talking about what exactly they are going to do about the film. The last update we did, it seemed like they were kind of going to find a middle ground and settle upon that. And according to a new report, it seems like that is basically what has happened, and I think fans are going to be pretty excited about what they have planned. If anything, fans are going to feel like Sony hasn't ruined it all. This report is coming from the insider Holyfield News, who is a new insider that has been posting several scoops recently, and their report says this: Marvel Studios and Sony are almost coming to an agreement that Spider-Man 4 will be a street-level film and release early 2026. Now, real quick, just about this specific part, we had heard before in the past that Sony was dead set on having Spider-Man 4 release in the middle of 2025, in June actually, and if this would have stayed there, that would have made Marvel Studios have to push back the Fantastic Four to December, which means they would have had to push back Blade to 2026. So right away, if this ends up being true, this is really good because we heard that Kevin Feige didn't want to do Spider-Man 4 anywhere in 2025 because he just didn't have the time. So this right away, if it is true, is extremely good news because that means Sony agreed that Spider-Man 4 could be in 2026. That means no delay for the Fantastic Four, no delay for Blade, and Kevin Feige can give it the time that it deserves. So great news there. So they say it'll release early 2026, but Sony is demanding it includes a lot of Sony Spider-Man characters like Norman Osborn, Eddie Brock's Venom, Kraven the Hunter, Miles Morales, Scorpion, Mysterio, etc. Now, there is more to this report, but let's talk about this part right here. This kind of bleeds into the failure of Madam Web. Again, Sony had a big plan for Madam Web, for some type of Spider-Man multiverse inside their Spider-Man adjacent universe. They were going to have Kraven the Hunter, probably Scorpion, probably Vulture, Morbius, etc. They were going to do a lot with these characters, and now it just sounds like, all right, we don't have faith anymore. We're just going to put them in the MCU now. So Marvel, that's what we need from you. And this can work, and a good benefit of this is that we'll get Miles Morales in the MCU, which we've heard is indeed happening. So that is definitely going to be one of the conditions that Sony has for Spider-Man 4, Miles Morales being in the film, which is awesome. And we've talked about this report before. I think it would be really great. And I do think Miles Morales is going to be the future Spider-Man once Tom Holland's Spider-Man is done. Now, how can they incorporate the rest? Well, some of them are already in the MCU. Some of them have died, or so we think, like Mysterio. And some have actually been hinted to eventually enter the MCU. When making Spider-Man No Way Home, the movie makers, writers, producers, they actually wanted to have Kraven the Hunter be in Spider-Man No Way Home, but Sony said not until we use him in our universe, basically stating, let us introduce him first, and then you can have him in the MCU, implying that this would indeed be the same Kraven the Hunter. Now, as far as Eddie Brock's Venom is concerned, well, we do know that we had Tom Hardy's Venom go into the MCU, leave a part of the Venom symbiote behind, and then go back. And now I do have a concern about this. Since this states Eddie Brock's Venom, I'm concerned that the Venom symbiote won't find Peter Parker first, which I want to happen because that is comic accurate. That is something Sony never did with Tom Hardy's Venom. So maybe it's a variant, maybe the multiverse will indeed play an aspect in this film, which according to this report, it is going to. So I hope they do that right. Now diving into the last part of this report, which states they do indeed want a multiversal aspect to it. It says, while also having one MCU hero appear and a multiverse ending that sets up Tobey and Andrew's return for a future film. Now, I think most fans would really enjoy this and really just kind of be okay with it, if not super excited for it, because this is already what we really expected. We already expected another MCU character in this film. In fact, we expect two. From the reports that we've heard that Daredevil is going to be in it and possibly Ant-Man. So another MCU character showing up is no surprise to us, and I'm sure most of us would welcome that as long as they're not going to take over as kind of Peter's father or his mentor, but more of like an ally that's trying to guide him in the right direction. We want Peter to finally be on his own, no mentor. In fact, most of us really want him to mentor Miles Morales in the next few films, in which at this point, several insiders have stated Miles is showing up, including this report, so that looks very likely. They could meet at Feast, both volunteering at Feast, which is where Aunt May worked, and there are stories where Miles Morales volunteers there, and it would make sense that Peter Parker would volunteer there in remembrance of Aunt May. She loved that place, so he goes to volunteer, and then there he would meet Miles Morales. Their spider senses would go off. They would each realize, hey, they kind of are both Spider-Man. They both have the same powers, and hopefully from there, Peter goes on to mentor Miles. Now, setting up an ending that has a multiversal aspect to it is not hard at all. We are in the multiverse saga. Plus, not to mention, if this is coming out in 2026, that means we are not far away when that releases from Avengers Secret Wars. So everything should really kind of start to have a multiversal aspect to it at that point in time. I mean, at that point in time, Secret Wars is only going to be a year away. The multiverse should really be hitting the fan at that point in time. Plus, we have heard multiple reports by now from multiple different insiders that Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man is going to return and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man is going to return. In fact, we have heard recently that Tobey Maguire and Sam Raimi might get together again and actually make Spider-Man 4. And we heard that from Thomas Hayden Church, the actor who plays Sandman in Spider-Man 3. He said that he's heard that that could happen. Plus, we heard that Hugh Jackman said that he would return for Avengers Secret Wars if he gets to be alongside Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man. Of course, that would be a variant. And insiders like Alex Perez from the Cosmic Circus have stated that the story for Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man will continue on. He might not get his own solo movie. In fact, he probably won't, but his story will continue on. So the fact that Sony wants Andrew Garfield to show up in Secret Wars is no surprise to us, but in fact, most of us truly do want him to appear in Secret Wars as well. I mean, if we're being honest, I think most of us pretty much want everybody to appear in some way, shape, or form, even if it's just for a few seconds on screen in a Portals type of scene where everybody gathers together. We'd love to see everybody. Okay, maybe not everybody, but most of them. But this sounds really good because Sony has essentially agreed to let Marvel Studios make the movie that they were going to make, with the exception of they have to throw in a few characters. But the characters could work with the story that Kingpin has outlawed being a vigilante, so he hires his people, his lackeys, his goons, to go and take out out some vigilantes. That could be Kraven the Hunter. That could be Scorpion. You could introduce Miles Morales in this movie. We've heard they're going to do that. That's no surprise to us. You could introduce the Venom symbiote in this movie. You could introduce Eddie Brock without them actually having to connect yet. It still could be very street level, and then after Spider-Man defeats whatever villains he defeats, that's where we have an ending that's like, oh crap, the multiverse is falling apart. The multiverse is in danger. What is happening? Then the other two Spider-Mans show up. That's pretty simple to do. It doesn't take a lot of time, but it offers a lot of fan service, and I think a lot of people would be really excited about that, and it would set up a lot. So overall, it looks like the Sony and Marvel situation is looking pretty good. It does seem like Sony is being pretty reasonable if this report is true, and things will basically work out the way Marvel Studios and Kevin Feige wants them to work out for Spider-Man 4. But go ahead and let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. What do you think about this? Do you like it or do you not? If you could change something, let me know what you would change. Please don't forget to give this video a like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date on the MCU. And if you subscribe and leave a comment, you are automatically entered in our giveaway for a chance to win a PS5, an Xbox Series X, or some Marvel Legends items. The winner picks one item, and we pick a winner at the end of each month. As always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.